After being beaten to death by my husband for the fourth time, those damn comment bubbles popped up in front of me again. Is this the spineless coward who got beaten so badly she needs a colostomy bag? People like her make me sick. No backbone at all. She won't fight back. She won't even call the police. She's an embarrassment to all women. Maybe she was cheating. Why else would her husband try to kill her this time? I decided to ignore the barrage of comments. I directly fed my husband sleeping pills and dismembered him while he was in a deep slumber. I thought to myself, surely I'm not being a coward this time, right? In past lives, it was clearly me who died, yet the barrage of comments always sided with my husband, nitpicking my every flaw. Now that it's my husband who's dead, surely they'll finally take my side and help me list all his faults. But then, floating in midair, I saw a barrage comment say, "This is premeditated murder, not a domestic dispute. The death penalty is a must." I stood before the shattered bathroom mirror, carefully examining the injuries on my face: 2 bruises, 4 scratches, and a vivid handprint. All of this was done by Zhao Hai, my husband of 6 years. To outsiders, we appeared to be a harmonious couple. Apart from the occasional times Zhao Hai would beat me up over some minor issue, no one knows this is my 4th reincarnation. He has already beaten me to death 4 times, so this time, after being reborn, I plan to strike first. After Zhao Hai violently snatched our daughter's tuition money from me and went off to enjoy himself, our daughter timidly peeked out from her room. Her tiny hand gently touched the bruise on my face, then she blew on it softly, her expression full of concern. She asked me in a very small voice, "Mom, does this mean I can't go to school anymore soon?" My daughter spoke again. "It's okay. It's fine if I don't go to school. I can stay home with you, Mom. I don't want you to get hurt anymore." I stroked her head, my pale, parched lips straining into a smile. "Don't be afraid, Mommy has a plan. I'll make sure you can keep going to school." Hearing me say that, the barrage of comments on the screen couldn't help but erupt in mockery. "Oh, please, keep pretending. If you, Song Miao, really had that kind of ability, would you have been suffering from domestic abuse all this time?" "Exactly. Back when my husband tried to hit me, I just grabbed a kitchen knife and threatened him. He never dared lay a hand on me again. After that, my husband is much better. If he's in a bad mood, he takes it out on others. He's never hit me, let alone anything like domestic violence. If Song Miao had even a shred of a backbone, he wouldn't be walking around with a bruised face every day. Don't any of you believe it? Well, just wait and see too." After settling my daughter back in her room, I went out to the pharmacy downstairs. On the way, I ran into a few tall, burly neighbors huddled together, talking about something. I looked at their faces and cautiously shrank into the farthest corner of the elevator. I kept my head bowed low, not daring to look up at all. The neighbors noticed me too, their gazes turning somewhat disdainful. Zhao Hai's domestic violence against me was somewhat notorious throughout the entire neighborhood. They looked down on Zhao Hai for beating his wife, and they looked down on me even more for being so timid and weak. The barrage of comments online completely lost it again over my pathetic state, hurling hundreds of insults my way, all of which I pretended not to see: weakness, incompetence, a punching bag. And yet, aren't these the perfect disguise? The moment I stepped up to the counter, the pharmacist's brow furrowed slightly. She knew me, knew my face was often bruised, and knew exactly what medicine to use for my injuries. Before I could say a word, she deftly slid the medicine across to me and quoted the price. But I didn't take it. I just shook my head. I said, "I don't want this one. I'm looking for something else." I haltingly recited the name of a medication I had looked up online. "It's not a sleeping pill, but it has a powerful sedative effect." The doctor gave me a strange look but didn't say anything. Just as I paid and was about to leave with my head down, the doctor called out to me. She put the medicine I often bought to clean the wounds on my face into a small plastic bag. "You can take these as well, no charge." It seemed like just an ordinary remark, devoid of pity or sympathy, but I understood it was the doctor's kindness, so I carefully accepted the items and murmured a quiet thank you. 3. That evening, Zhao Hai came home reeking of alcohol. Just as expected, the moment he stepped through the door, he started hurling abuse at me. "Are you blind? What are you just standing there for? Don't you know to run my bath, you useless idiot?" His huge, fan-like hand slapped hard across my face, but I didn't dare fight back when Zhao Hai hurled insults and threw punches. All I could do was stand there in pathetic silence. Is this woman out of her mind? How can she just take this abuse? Can someone just let me in there to slap Song Miao a couple of times? I can't watch this. What a spineless coward. She deserves whatever she gets if she lets herself be beaten to death. I glanced at the barrage of insults directed at me and pressed my lips together. I led my daughter, who had been playing in the living room but was now trembling from the sound of Zhao Hai's furious Shouting, into her room. I walked into the master bedroom. The floor was littered with Zhao Hai's discarded clothes, reeking of stale alcohol and an unbearable stench. Just seconds later, Zhao Hai emerged slowly from the bathroom, fresh from his shower. It was impossible to tell how much he'd drunk, but when he opened his mouth, a row of yellowed teeth released a foul stench. Suddenly, Zhao Hai retched violently. A spray of yellowish-brown vomit splattered across the entire bed, and he grew visibly irritated. He shoved me onto the bed and said with disgust, "Clean this up, now, I need to get some sleep soon." I was covered in Zhao Hai's vomit. The stench made my stomach churn, but all I could do was turn away and briskly start stripping the soiled sheets. Before I could finish cleaning, I heard Zhao Hai's voice again. "Song Miao, you goddamn useless bitch. How long does it take to wash a bedsheet? Can't you do a single thing right? Are you just trying to slack off? I'm starving. Get your ass in the kitchen and make me a midnight snack." Now, I clenched my fists, holding back. "Just a moment, I'm almost finished." But the impatient Zhao Hai had already kicked the bathroom door open. "For God's sake, you just laze around at home all day doing nothing. What's so hard about making a little midnight snack? Forget the damn sheets. Stop washing them and get your ass to the kitchen to make me some noodles." Zhao Hai kicked over my wash basin. The sheets, which had just been cleaned, were now filthy again, but he was still glaring at me. I couldn't fight back, so I just went into the kitchen. Over the hum of the range hood, I could hear Zhao Hai's loud, boastful voice as he talked to his buddy on the phone in the living room. "I told you, a wife won't listen unless you beat her. Look at mine. After I gave her a couple of beatings, she's in the kitchen right now, obediently making me a midnight snack." Women, they're just asking for it, always making trouble. A couple of beatings is the only way they learn who's really in charge. The jeering laughter of Zhao Hai's good-for-nothing friend spilled out from his phone on speaker. Everyone was egging him on, saying Zhao Hai had a real knack for keeping his wife in line. I acted as if I hadn't heard their insulting remarks. After cooking noodles for Zhao Hai, I took out the medicine I'd bought at the pharmacy that afternoon and stirred it in with my chopsticks. By the time I carried the bowl out of the kitchen, the pill bottle in my pocket was completely empty. The barrage that was just relentlessly condemning me, calling me useless. Now, there's nothing but a string of question marks. What is she about to do? It can't be. As if I hadn't seen a thing, I first went to check if I had locked my daughter's door, then entered the master bedroom. Zhao Hai, full and satisfied, was already snoring thunderously under the combined influence of alcohol and sleeping pills. My right hand, which had been behind my back, trembled as I raised it in front of me. Clutched tightly in my hand was the kitchen knife I had sharpened just that afternoon. I took a deep breath. I followed the instructions I found online for slaughtering a pig. First, I slit Zhao Hai's throat. Jolted awake by the searing pain, he clutched his neck as blood gushed out, his eyes wide with shock, making gurgling sounds. His thick right arm still tried to grab me, scaring me into stumbling backward until I hit the wardrobe door. Gasping for breath, Zhao Hai tried to get up, but his convulsing body couldn't even lift itself from the blood-soaked sheet. It was the first time I truly understood. So, Zhao Hai was human after all, and could die too. So, he could also end up like I once did, a fish on the chopping block, utterly at the mercy of others. This was the first time I realized it. So, killing a person was actually quite simple. When I struck the first blow, I was terrified. My chest heaved so violently I thought I might faint, but by the time I reached the 41st strike, I was perfectly calm. I could no longer even recognize the mangled, bloody mess beneath the blade. I only knew one thing. I had to keep cutting him. 41 stab wounds in total, each one a bloody, vicious slash, just like the 41 times Zhao Hai beat me during my 5 consecutive cycles of reincarnation. After it was done, I stood in the blood-spattered bedroom, my slick, crimson hands barely able to grip the phone. I called the police, my voice a dry rasp as I spoke to the dispatcher. "My husband is dead. I want to report a crime, and I'm the one who killed him." From the moment Zhao Hai breathed his last under my knife, to the police storming into my home and snapping the handcuffs onto my wrist, only half an hour had passed. In the pitch-black night, I saw the residential complex lit up as bright as day, every single window aglow, watching my every move. Before getting into the police car, I asked a favor of one of the female officers on the scene. I asked her to contact my mother so she could come pick up my daughter, because Zhao Hai's family never liked her, seeing her as a useless girl who couldn't carry on the family line like a son could. Even at the family reunion dinner during the new year, she would mercilessly strike her daughter's hand with chopsticks when the girl tried to take a piece of meat. A scornful sneer accompanied the blow. "What's the point of spoiling a worthless burden like her? She should be grateful I'm not slapping her instead of letting her have meat." The daughter couldn't understand why her own flesh and blood, her relatives, would look at her with such disgust. I never understood why, But every year when Zhao Hai came home, he would get worked up by our relatives and friends and excitedly turn violent towards me. All she knew was that every time we went back to our hometown, Mom would get beaten even with her head covered in blood and wounds. She would still softly comfort her, telling her not to cry. While I was temporarily detained, I could faintly hear the sounds of an argument outside the door. The female police officer, holding the medical records documenting my repeated domestic violence beatings, so severe they required hospital stitches, sighed and said, "Look at this, she endured so many beatings and was nearly beaten to death. The fact that she held out this long before fighting back shows incredible strength, and she still has fresh injuries on her face. Shouldn't this count as self-defense?" Another male officer with a beer belly scoffed dismissively. "That still doesn't justify killing someone. Since when does being a victim give you the right to murder? She had plenty of other options, like calling the police. It's not like we're just sitting around doing nothing." The sound faded into the distance, gradually disappearing. I looked down at the dried blood on my hands and couldn't help but let out a scornful laugh. Would calling the police even help? If this were my first time being reborn, I might have believed it, but now, on the fifth time, I just find it laughable. So, what about all those comments that kept blaming me for not fighting back? Now that I've tortured and killed Zhao Hai, surely they'll be on my side this time, right? So I lifted my head again, gazing into the empty air. Oh my god, is Song Miao insane? How could she kill someone? Zhao Hai was her husband. How brutal. Does Song Miao have some kind of psychological trauma, or is she a sociopath? I know Zhao Hai was wrong to abuse her, but if she couldn't take it, she could have just gotten a divorce. Was it really necessary to go as far as murder? This is no longer just about domestic abuse. Song Miao is a murderer, and she must be sentenced to death. Reading these pointed questions, I was at a loss again. Why are they acting differently from the last 4 times? What exactly went wrong? It suddenly hit me that Zhao Hai wasn't the only one who deserved to die. I closed my eyes and let the barrage of comments fade from my sight. When the police came back in, I calmly confessed to my crime. Yes, I am a murderer. I killed my husband with my own hands. My murder weapon and the tools I used in the crime, like the sleeping pills, were all laid out neatly before me, and there was my signed confession. By all rights, I should be the most emotionally stable criminal of the year, shouldn't I? Yet the police still won't let me be, even though I've confessed to everything. They keep pressing me. Why? A woman killed a man who beat her, and yet they ask me why. I found it somewhat ridiculous. But this isn't the first time he's hit you. What's different this time? Looking into the eyes of the veteran officer, who seemed genuinely perplexed, a smirk played on my lips. Want to know? I can keep talking, but on one condition. 5. I demand that this full confession of my motives be live-streamed across the entire internet. The police hesitated. They must have held a private meeting, but perhaps because cases of a wife killing her husband in self-defense are so rare, they seem to want to make an example of me. A few days later, the police informed me, "You can go live." The camera was set up right in front of me, its dark lens reflecting my pale, vacant face, but I knew that behind that lens were thousands, watching the live stream. They might be cursing me, or perhaps pitying me, or maybe, like the barrage of comments flooding the screen, relentlessly mocking my crimes. I moistened my parched lips and forced out my first words. I said, "The truth is, I've been reborn. This is my 4th rebirth, my 5th life." Not just the barrage of comments, but even the police off camera furrowed their brows. "Ms. Song Miao, please respect the gravity of this live broadcast. Do not fabricate such nonsensical lies." I know that very few people would believe in the reality of reincarnation. Even when I opened my eyes after being beaten to death in my first life and saw Zhao Hai's disgusting face again, I also wondered if I had merely experienced a horrific nightmare. But even dreams must come to an end. Yet the domestic violence and torment I suffered at Zhao Hai's hands felt like an endless, inescapable hell, with no way out in sight. If my claim of being reborn merely left the police puzzled, then my statement about seeing text constantly flashing before my eyes sent a fresh wave of shock through the livestream comments. I ignored their exclamation points of shock and, enunciating each word deliberately, read out the barrage comments they had once posted. "Cruel, vicious, a deliberate murderer. That's how you see me, but why don't you stop and think about what drove me to the point of fighting back and killing Zhao Hai?" People in the barrage were still hurling insults at me. "Isn't that just because you're too thin-skinned? It's just domestic violence. What woman hasn't experienced it? Don't they all live peacefully with their husbands into their old age? If every woman who suffered domestic violence was like you, so enraged by a few slaps that she'd want to kill, wouldn't all the men in the world be long dead by now?" The self-righteous tirade actually made me laugh out loud. I mean the kind of laughter that doubles you over, wiping the tears of mirth from the corners of my eyes. I slowly read out the username from the barrage comment at, "Telling your husband to eat it." You have no idea how terrifying domestic violence really is. What gives you the right to sit on your high horse and forgive abusers on our behalf? Just a few days ago, she was smugly bragging in the live stream comments about how she'd found herself a great husband. He never loses his temper with her or lays a hand on her, instead directing his anger outward. I can't deny it, she's incredibly lucky, and her husband is a genuinely good man. Isn't it just another form of victimization to flaunt your happiness in front of someone who's suffering, all under the guise of sharing? The barrage of comments gradually slowed, and the woman vanished from the screen filled with text, but an officer off-camera made a gesture, signaling to pause the live stream. What are you talking about? Who are you talking to? They took me for an evaluation and found no signs of any psychiatric disorder. The polygraph test also confirmed that I was telling the truth. This means, yes, I have indeed been reborn 4 times. I saw the tense, grim expressions on the faces of the police rushing by and heard them whispering about everything I had said. That brief live stream must have sent shockwaves through the outside world. Even the camera set up in front of me has been shut down for a long time, with no sign of it coming back on, but I felt no emotional turbulence, no despair, no sinking feeling, no sense of dread. That was until a few strangers sat down in front of me and started the live stream again. This time, they placed a phone in front of me. Looking up, I saw myself on the screen, with live chat comments flying by. I took a deep breath and confessed to everyone the pitiful and tragic ways I had died in my previous lives. In my first life, I was beaten to death by Zhao Hai because I had an affair. 6. Those 2 simple words, once uttered, made the barrage of comments in the live stream and the floating chat scroll even faster. Just hearing that one sentence was enough for them to think they'd found proof, emboldening them to confront me from their moral high ground with righteous indignation. See, I knew that woman was no good from the start. She cheated, so getting beaten by her husband is just what she deserved. Disgusting. A woman who breaks her marriage vows deserves to be beaten to death. Her husband died for nothing. It's a done deal that Song Miao is the murderer, right? When is she getting the firing squad? Even the police officer supervising my livestream couldn't help but frown in unison, but I was unfazed, even letting out a light chuckle. I continued. The so-called infidelity refers to me chatting a bit more with a male customer while I was working a part-time job. The 2 phrases are welcome and please come again. Zhao Hai and I met through a matchmaking arrangement. Pressured by our families to marry, we rushed into the union without truly knowing each other, and soon after, we had a child. However, after our daughter was born, Zhao Hai's hopes for a son were dashed, and his true colors, his deep-seated preference for sons over daughters, began to show. He would frequently hurl abuse at our young daughter and take out all his frustrations on me. This was after I was forced to become a housewife, and Zhao Hai refused to contribute a single penny toward our daily expenses. Out of sheer desperation, I had no choice but to contact the supermarket downstairs and beg them for a part-time job. Zhao Hai, who had gone to the supermarket to buy cigarettes, happened to see me scanning items and handling the cash register for a customer. His buddies instantly started jeering, winking, and nudging Zhao Hai, taunting him for not even being able to control his own wife. Enraged, Zhao Hai grabbed me by the hair in front of everyone, threw me to the ground, and started kicking and punching me. He kept hitting me while spewing a torrent of filthy curses. You filthy whore, you bitch, I'm not even dead yet, and you're already throwing yourself at other men. Who the hell do you think you are? I frantically dodged his heavy fists, my voice hoarse as I repeated my denial over and over. I was just working. I wasn't trying to seduce anyone. Zhao Hai kicked me hard in the stomach and spat twice with contempt. How dare you deny it? I saw it with my own eyes. You were practically grinding on him. You think I'm blind? Zhao Hai thinks I cheated on him. Amidst the cheers from his buddies, his punches whistled through the air, leaving me bruised and battered. Yet in that vast supermarket, not a single soul stepped forward. The falsely accused male customer, as if tainted by something filthy, paid and hurried away. He didn't even utter a word in my defense. No, I didn't seduce him. As I lay on the brink of death, these barrage comments appeared before my eyes. Isn't this just reaping what you sow? She's married with a husband, yet she's still throwing herself at other men. I feel sorry for her husband. She has no sense of boundaries at all, doesn't know how to keep her distance from other men. No wonder her husband is furious. Song Miao deserved to get hit. How stupid can you be? Flirting with someone right in front of your husband. Couldn't she have done it behind his back? Who else should he hit? I don't know how those bullet comments appeared. All I knew was that they never stopped blaming me. Right up until Zhao Hai beat me to death in that supermarket, they blamed me for the affair, saying my death was my own fault. With so many people pointing fingers, I started to believe it myself and fell into deep self-reflection. So when I opened my eyes and realized I had been reborn, the first thing I did was quit my part-time job at the supermarket, cutting off any chance of contact with men from the outside world, even just walking in and out of my apartment building. If I saw a man passing by, I'd instinctively and neurotically shrink into the farthest corner. I listened to you, I kept to myself, thinking that Wei Zhaohai would have no excuse to lay a hand on me, and I could avoid the fate of being beaten to death by him like in my last life. But guess what? I died again. 7. Often, an act of domestic violence erupts without any reason at all. In my second life, I was beaten to death because Zhaohai didn't have a hot meal waiting for him when he got home from work. I had just brought my sick daughter home from the hospital. The moment I stepped through the door, Zhaohai slapped me hard across the face, twice. What the hell are you doing running around all day? I work my ass off, and all I want when I get home is a hot meal, and you don't lift a finger around the house, and now you have the nerve to not even bother making dinner. Zhaohai was blind to my exhaustion and the strong smell of disinfectant clinging to me. He just vented his rage, hitting me with whatever was at hand, cups, chairs, anything. Finally worn out from the fight, I swaggered out with a few buddies to grab some barbecue and shoot the breeze. Because of my death in the first life, I had already developed a fear of Zhaohai. I didn't dare go out anymore, nor did I dare buy medicine. There were male pharmacists at the drugstore, and if Zhaohai saw me, he'd accuse me of trying to seduce them, and if I came back too late, he'd scold me for not having cleaned up the mess at home yet. I was in for another beating, so I lay on the ground, gasping for air. Every bone in my body ached terribly with the slightest movement. I thought once I caught my breath, I'd get up and tidy the place, but I never did catch my breath in this life. Just before I died, the barrage of comments shifted to blame me from a different angle. OMG, she's been beaten to this state. Why didn't Song Miao call the police? This is the consequence of tolerating domestic violence. Who told Song Miao to never fight back, always just taking it lying down? If she had resisted, it wouldn't have come to this. When I was domestically abused, I fought back immediately and got divorced soon after. How did it get so tragic for Song Miao? So you see, Song Miao shouldn't have just taken the beatings. I drew my last breath, collapsing into a pool of my own blood to the sound of my daughter's heart-wrenching sobs. Yet, all too soon, I was reborn once more. 8. In my third life, having learned from the last, I called the police the very first moment I could. When I mentioned calling the police, both the people present and the livestream comments expressed agreement with me for the first time. Now you're talking. You should have done that ages ago. If you'd called the police earlier, you wouldn't have died so many times. Right, you're finally using your head. Wait, hold on. She just said she's been reborn 4 times, but this is only the third life. I narrowed my eyes, scanning the crowd until I found the pot-bellied man who had argued with the policewoman when I was detained. A mocking glint flickered in my eyes. Calling the police, would it really do any good? In my third life, the moment I was beaten, I rushed straight to the police station with my injuries. The male officer on duty at the time was the one. He hesitated for a long while before finally muttering, "It's a domestic matter, we can't get involved." I stood there numbly in the cold wind. My mind kept replaying the officer's cold refusal and the barrage of online comments that had previously scolded me for not going to the police. Yes, I came to the police station, I filed a report, yet I couldn't change my fate of being a victim of domestic violence. In fact, after returning home, Zhaohai, who had gotten wind of it, beat me even more brutally. He hit me while sneering coldly. Not even the king of heaven himself could stop me from teaching my own wife a lesson. You dare call the cops? I've got connections on the inside. It won't do you any good. Gritting my teeth against the pain, I trembled as I pushed myself up from the ground. I decided to run away with my daughter, but even after I bought the tickets and was careful not to tell a soul, I slipped out quietly in the dead of night. I thought that way, I could finally live a decent life. The next day, when I opened the hotel room door, I was met with Zhao Hai's ferocious expression and the duty officer accompanying him, as Zhao Hai grabbed my hair and slammed my head against the wall. My forehead gushed blood and my vision was tinted crimson. The officer said impatiently in a cold tone, "Zhao Hai, I'm only helping you this once. The Skynet system is not for you to use to track down your own wife." Zhao Hai fawned over him as he saw him out, then immediately turned around and continued his domestic violence against me. This time, I was lucky. I survived. I didn't die on the spot, but multiple bones in my body were broken, and my internal organs were so severely damaged by Zhao Hai's beating that they had to be surgically removed. I became a bedridden waste, hooked up to a colostomy bag all day. For 10 long years, I lingered on in bed, forcing my aging mother to drag her weary body to care for me. Yet Zhao Hai, the perpetrator, was sentenced to just 10 years in prison. On the day he was arrested and taken to prison, his icy eyes fixed on me and my daughter as he rasped, "Just you wait, Song Miao. You're not getting away with this. A measly 10 years, and with good Behavior, I could get out even sooner. The day I'm released will be the day your whole family dies. This time, the barrage of comments didn't lecture me about calling the police like they did in my past life. They put on a different face. It's just domestic violence. Why bother calling the police? What couple hasn't had a fight? Song Miao has such a terrible temper. Nothing like a proper wife and mother. Calling the police really hurts a man's pride. She didn't leave him any face at all. What kind of person airs their dirty laundry like that? No wonder her husband hit her. 9. No matter what I do, death is inescapable. No matter what I do, I'm met with public condemnation. I'm completely at a loss for what to do, so I just blindly follow the barrage of comments. So, in my fourth life, I learned to be a virtuous wife and mother, striving to do everything to please Zhao Hai. I learned to prioritize Zhao Hai's needs above all else. His words were like imperial decrees. Once spoken, I had to obey. I felt less like a wife and more like Zhao Hai's servant. I did whatever he said. I didn't dare to resist, to call the police, or to interact with other men. I didn't dare run away with my daughter. I just wanted to live out my life in peace and quiet, but I died anyway. Zhao Hai resented me for being a housewife, saying I did nothing but spend his money and was utterly useless, and I only gave him a daughter, which meant he had to endure the relatives' sneers and taunts every year when he went home for the new year. Zhao Hai had an affair, but he didn't want a divorce, didn't want to pay alimony, and didn't want to share what little property he had left with me, so Zhao Hai chose to kill his wife for the insurance money. I calmly recounted my 5 lives, each one scarred and battered, a silent smile, demanding answers from the barrage of scrolling comments before me. Every single time, I followed the methods you taught me, so why did I still die so many times? Every time, you nitpicked the flaws of the victim, me, while staying silent about the murderer. Am I, the one who was beaten, less deserving of forgiveness than a domestic abuser, than a murderer? Do you only ever sympathize with the perpetrator and blame the victim? So why is it that this time, when I killed Zhao Hai to survive, you didn't condemn him, but instead called me vicious and a sociopath? Can anyone tell me what exactly I'm supposed to do to be considered a perfect victim? Does keeping my distance from the opposite sex help? Does being submissive and obedient help? Does being a virtuous woman help? Officer, my eyes were locked on the pot-bellied police officer. Would calling the police even do any good? 10. Truth be told, I demanded to go live, not to change the outcome of my own death sentence, but rather, even if there is only one woman experiencing domestic violence watching my livestream, I want to tell her, no, it's not your fault. The abuser is the real culprit. They are the ones who deserve to die. Domestic violence is never a mere family dispute, a relationship issue, or a simple case of personal injury. It has always been, and should always be, a crime punishable under criminal law. It was as if a pause button had been pressed on the entire room, including the barrage of comments, leaving everything in a sudden, stark silence. The voices that had only known how to interrogate me, that only preached victim blaming, were gradually drowned out by a flood of new comments. They began to ask themselves, why are the vast majority of domestic violence victims women? Why is it that after a domestic violence case comes to light, women are still the ones who face most of the blame? Is gender really what determines guilt? Gradually, more and more people joined the discussion. Once again, they doubted whether my stories of rebirth and those mental bullet screen comments were real, but this time, their speculation wasn't malicious. Instead, they were saying, how could there really be something like bullet comments? That was probably just a narrative device Song Miao used to tell the story. As for those times she sought advice, those were likely all the survival strategies she could think of for herself. It's just that none of them worked. There's no such thing as omniscient bullet comments. Those are clearly the very real struggles women face in society. Support criminalizing domestic violence. Support abolishing the concept of domestic violence. All violence should be treated as intentional assault. From that moment, the barrage of comments before my eyes flickered into monochrome static before vanishing completely. At the same time, countless posts with real names attached inexplicably flooded the internet. They were all the extreme comments left by netizens under various videos following domestic violence cases. Coincidentally, those comments were identical to the barrage of text that once scrolled before my eyes. The veil of anonymity was ruthlessly torn away, exposing the senders of those comments, their names and families laid bare. How laughable, those comments blaming me for not fighting back, for not reporting it, for not keeping my distance from men. The vast majority of these posts, shockingly, were made by men. They have no understanding of the horror of domestic violence, blindly defending their own group's interests while spreading the message that I somehow deserved the abuse. Now, they are facing the consequences. My real name was doxed, and my home address became publicly available information. Online, they were forced to bow their heads and apologize immediately, even writing a handwritten apology letter. admitting that their statements amounted to spreading rumors. 11 After the live stream ended, a composed and gentle middle-aged policewoman brought me a cup of hot water. She asked me, "You've endured domestic violence so many times. Has no one at all offered you any help?" I gazed at the gently rippling water, thought for a moment, and finally allowed a faint smile to touch my lips. There was a female passerby who grabbed an umbrella, ready to help when she saw me being beaten, but her boyfriend held her back. There was a female police officer who wanted to detain Zhao Hai, but her superior stopped her. The female judge who handed down a heavy sentence to Zhao Hai in the first trial had her ruling overturned on appeal. They wanted to save me, but they couldn't, because they were trapped in their own dire circumstances. 1 month after the live stream ended, my own verdict came down. It wasn't the death penalty, it was ruled self-defense. I was acquitted. The day I left the detention center, the long-missed sunlight dazzled my eyes. Zhao Hai's mother charged toward me. She was in her 60s, with graying hair. Her clouded eyes were red and swollen from crying, and she was completely hysterical. "My son is dead, murdered in cold blood by this bitch. Why shouldn't she pay with her life?" Yet this very person, in the third life, when Zhao Hai beat me so badly I needed a permanent colostomy bag, only got sentenced to 10 years. He made a special trip to the hospital just to gloat and say to me, "See, even if your life is ruined, my son will only have to serve a few years in prison. Once he's out, I'll find him a healthy, beautiful wife, guaranteed to be better than you." I suddenly felt a pang of pity for her, because she had been completely broken in. I had lost the will to fight back I should have had, and had even become an accomplice to the domestic violence. Suddenly, I felt there was no point in arguing with Zhao Hai's mother anymore. I just lifted my head, looked past her, and saw the people waiting outside the far door to pick me up upon my release. Several unfamiliar young women, none of whom I had ever seen before. "She still looks like a student, youthful and full of energy." When they saw me, they said to me earnestly, "Ms. Song, we've all watched your live streams and know your uncompromising stance against domestic violence. We will definitely study hard, work diligently, and strive to pass the civil service and postgraduate entrance exams in the future. We will hold more positions and help every victim with fairness and justice." As I listened to their promises, tears welled up in my eyes. I was at a loss for words, yet my gaze instinctively followed Zhao Hai's mother as she slowly walked away. Her aged figure had not yet fully vanished from sight, and faintly, one could still hear her mournful wails. "I think I understand now. Even if some have been tamed, becoming accomplices to those who inflict harm, there will always be those who resist, who remain clear-headed through struggle after struggle. Fortunately, I won't be the first, nor will I be the last." Not far away, my mother was also approaching, holding my daughter's hand. When they saw me, they were both crying uncontrollably. "Mom, I'll eat well and grow up strong so I can protect you, sweetheart. I won't pressure you to get married anymore. I think, perhaps, my fifth life can be considered a complete one." Zhao Hai is dead. His mother has lost her son in her old age, a parent outliving her child, and my mother and my daughter did not have to lose their daughter and mother all over again. The end. Story 2. On a stormy day, Joey kicked me out of the car to go comfort his depressed, fragile white moonlight. It caused me to miscarry and left me infertile. After leaving the ICU, the first thing I did was beg old Master Zhou to help me get a divorce, just as Joey had knelt in the rain 5 years ago, begging to marry me. After getting the divorce certificate, I didn't wait for Joey to return. I quietly packed my bags and left, but Joey went berserk. "It's because of you that both Shuyu and I ended up like this. What gives you the right to start over?" Only after finally getting old Master Zhou to relent and promise to help me with the divorce did I allow myself to faint. After kneeling for over 6 hours fresh out of the ICU, my already frail body was battered by the downpour, leaving me utterly debilitated. Back in the hospital bed, I was racked by a high fever. That night. In my delirium, the memory surfaced, that day when Joey received another distress call from his beloved Xia Shuyue, his face cold as he unhesitatingly shoved me out of the car. "If it weren't for you, Shuyue would never have been hurt back then. Now she's having an episode and threatening suicide. This is a matter of life and death, and you still dare to stand in my way. Ningzhen, how could you become like this? If anything happens to Shuyue, how will you ever sleep soundly again?" His good breeding kept him from uttering blunt, cutting words like vicious or selfish, but his icy gaze left no doubt about his contempt for me. His stare sent a chill through my entire body. Drenched by the heavy rain, I stood motionless outside the car door, staring at Joey, my lips turning a frozen purple. He didn't give me an umbrella. Perhaps he forgot, but since he didn't say anything, the driver didn't dare to offer one either. Still, I want to explain myself. I'm pregnant. this child we've waited 5 years for has finally come, and I was just yet. Joey had no patience to wait for me. Before I could utter a word, the car door slammed shut. The car sped away before my eyes. It was the suburbs, and with the torrential rain, there were hardly any cars on the road. Fearing for my child's safety, I swallowed my pride and, with a heart-wrenching pain, called Joey to beg for help. Joey, could you give me a ride back to the city? I'll get out halfway. I promise I won't disturb you too. I'm preg. Ningzhen. Is this little tantrum of yours really necessary? Zhou Yi's low voice was laced with boundless fury, cutting me off abruptly before I could even finish my sentence. You know perfectly well that Shuiwei doesn't want to see you. Can't you just give it a rest? He hung up on me without a moment's hesitation. When I tried calling back, I found I had already been blocked. I called the driver. The phone rang twice. Before I was blocked again, I crouched down, clutching my stomach, and let out a bitter laugh. I knew it, time and again, every single time. It ends like this, yet I still have to run headfirst into the wall before I'll finally give up. The cold rain mingled with warm tears as they silently fell. I said to myself, over and over in my heart, perhaps this is fate too. Joey and I got together during our freshman year. When I think about it, it's been 10 years now. He was the one who pursued me first. Back then, I had no idea that Joey had just been stood up by Xia Shuiwei, the girl he'd promised to attend the same university with and date openly once they got there. Xia Shuiwei grew up with Joey. She was his childhood sweetheart, his goddess, and his eternal white moonlight. Elegant and delicate, she was like a jasmine flower with a subtle fragrance. Her slender neck, tall figure, every smile and gesture captivated Joey's heart and soul. When Joey confessed his feelings to me, no one told me that his first love had quietly gone abroad to pursue her dancing dream, without even a proper goodbye. So it wasn't until the 3rd year of our marriage, when Xia Shuiwei returned from overseas, that I was kindly informed by friends that Joey had chosen me simply because my clear, bright eyes looked just like hers when I smiled. Throughout our courtship and the first 3 years of marriage, Joey was gentle, considerate, and knew exactly how to conduct himself. He was a perfectly suitable and attentive partner in every way. Even my own brother Ninghai, who grew up with me through thick and thin, had nothing but praise for him. At our wedding, he even declared publicly that he felt completely at ease and trusting his sister to Zhou Yi. It never crossed my mind that all of Zhou Yi's thoughtfulness was actually the result of another woman's training. It wasn't until that very moment that the truth finally dawned on me. Yet, I still never once considered divorce. It's not that I haven't had my doubts, questioning the depth of this relationship. But whenever I remember that year right after graduation, when old Master Zhou told me how Joey knelt outside for a whole day in a downpour just to take me to meet his family, and ended up gravely ill because of it, all that, just to get his stubborn grandfather and his parents, who refused to see me, to give me a chance even after that meeting, when his parents still wouldn't accept me into the Zhou family, Zhou chose to stand by my side and face his family's punishment. That year, the pampered young master was kicked out of his home and squeezed into a shabby, 10-square-meter rental apartment with me. We went to the market together, cooked together, cleaned together, and commuted to work together. Through those poor and trying days, Joey never uttered a single complaint. In the end, I couldn't help but feel my heart ache for him. I watched as his delicate, sensitive skin, unable to afford clothes or bedsheets of the right material, would often break out in itchy allergic reactions, leaving him sleepless night after night, watching his once slender fingers grow rough and calloused from all the washing and cooking, watching him lose over 10 pounds in a year, his frame shifting from robust and upright to gaunt and sun-darkened. I was so heartbroken I couldn't sleep night after night. So, after celebrating our 5th anniversary, I quietly went to see old man Zhou. I told him I was willing to leave Zhou Yi. Our lives are worlds apart, and I have nothing to offer him. The most precious thing I can give him is his freedom back. The manner of our parting doesn't matter to me, be it dignified or messy, it's all the same. I want nothing for myself. To my surprise, this attitude actually won me the favor of old Master Zhou. 3. Perhaps it's because the sweetness of those 8 years left too indelible a mark, so much so that the torment of these last 2 years doesn't even feel as suffocating. From Qiao Shiyue's return, to Zhou Yi's odd behavior, to the moment I stumbled upon their ambiguous entanglement, the truth was laid bare before my eyes, utterly defenseless. Before I could even react, before I could even begin to discern the truth in Zhou Yi's so-called confession to me, Qiao Shiyue was in trouble. In an instant, I was plunged into hell. I will never forget the moment we learned Qiao Shiyue was in trouble. Zhou Yi answered the phone, shot to his feet, and sent a coffee cup shattering to the floor, yet he seemed utterly unaware of it. In the next instant, a sharp and complex gaze locked onto me, Devoid of any trace of its former affection, there was only coldness, regret, and heartache. The heartache belonged to Xia Shuiwei. The coldness and hatred, however, were mine. From that day on, everything in my life had to take a back seat to Xia Shuiwei. My promising job, on the verge of a promotion, was unilaterally quit by Zhou Yi. Also, I could take good care of the sick Xia Shuiwei. I was met with disdain, subjected to outbursts of temper, and even slapped across the face. Zhou Yi never stood up for me, just kept telling me to endure it, to bear it a little longer. After all, Xia Shuiwei was a patient during those endless, sunless days. I had finally found a sliver of solace in a hobby to vent my pent-up feelings. I had fought hard to secure an apprenticeship with a master cellist, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, yet, the moment Xia Shuiwei expressed a desire for it, Zhou Yi handed it over to her without a second thought, even though she had absolutely no use for it. Every single time I showed the slightest hint of reluctance, all I got in return was Zhou Yi's cold, detached warning. If it weren't for you, I would have insisted on taking Shuiwei home that day. She never would have gotten hurt. You drove her to a mental breakdown, to depression and suicide attempts. And now you're unhappy about doing just a little something to atone for it. I didn't know what to say. I just felt a growing bitterness in my mouth. Zhou Yi has probably long forgotten that my dream was to become a strong, independent woman, to stand by his side with unwavering confidence, making everyone see us as the perfect match. But now, I've given up my career, my dignity, even my passions, all for the sake of so-called atonement, all my efforts, all my sacrifices. Zhou Yi sees none of it. All his attention and energy were focused on the sick Xia Shuiwei. I, his lawful wife, wasn't even worthy of a sliver of it. I clung to the memory of the sincere affection we once shared, from hopeful anticipation to utter numbness, and this child, who arrived unexpectedly and was lost just as suddenly, became the final straw that broke me. For I hadn't expected this. Less than 3 months after the divorce, I found myself slinking back, tail between my legs, to the home I once shared with Zhou Yi. Zhou Yi sat behind the desk in his study, patiently waiting for me to walk right into his trap. I fixed my gaze on him for the first time, with absolute clarity. I realized he was no longer my lover. He was young Master Zhou of the publicly listed Hingyue Group, a master strategist whose every move shaped the fates of countless people. He was Xia Shuiwei's childhood sweetheart, an aloof and noble young master. I'm back. What will it take to let my brother go? I asked, my voice calm. I was still clutching the heavy suitcase, with no time to wipe the sweat from my brow or even take a sip of water. I was covered in the dust of the road. Have a seat. Here, have some water first. Zhou Yi ambled over slowly, took the suitcase from my hand, and pulled out the chair for me as well. His tall, straight figure completely loomed over me. I lowered my eyes and flinched slightly, then quickly shifted aside and took the seat. The divorce was handled with the old master's help. You were abroad at the time, accompanying Miss Qiao on her trip. I waited for you, but you never came. It didn't feel right to overstay my welcome, so I left on my own. I swallowed hard, trying my best to mask the stiffness in my voice. My brother is still in prison awaiting trial. My sister-in-law and nephew have been pleading for help everywhere to no avail. I don't want to upset Zhou Yi. He's so clever, and so alert. I couldn't show a hint of negativity. I had to obey unconditionally. Zhou Yi sat back down across the desk. The lights in the room were off, and his expression was hidden in the shadows, making it hard for me to see clearly. Ningzhen, haven't you noticed? Zhou Yi's voice was soft. What? I looked at him, puzzled. What should I be paying attention to? Had something else happened to Xia Shuiwei? I tried hard to recall if I had overlooked anything before leaving. Is it something else with Miss Qiao that's not to her liking? She's gone through several caregivers, and this one was the one she said she was comfortable with. Or is it somewhere else? Is the chef's cooking not to her taste? Or is she tired of her stylist or makeup artist and wants a change? I've already discussed all this with her personal assistant, Xiaolan. She should be able to find replacements. Or is it something else that's off? Zhou Yi just looked at me calmly under that scrutinizing gaze. My expression grew increasingly stiff, and my words began to falter. In the midst of a heavy silence, my body was rigid as I waited, slightly awkwardly, for Zhou Yi's instruction. After a long wait, he finally spoke. Didn't you notice? Zhou Yi's voice remained soft, yet it hit me like a bomb, leaving me dizzy and disoriented. I was in a car accident. My arm is in a cast, and I've only just started walking again. I'm still limping, but I just walked right past you, and you didn't even see me. Ningzhen. 5. It felt like a heavy stone had been dropped into the pit of my stomach, sinking deeper and deeper. It was a long moment before I heard my own voice, strained and stiff. I'm sorry. I'm so worried about Miss Qiao. Her condition hasn't been very stable these past few years. Joey just looked at me quietly, saying nothing. A deathly silence fell over the surroundings. The air suddenly grew thick and heavy, like the oppressive stillness before a storm, unbearably stifling. I stole a furtive glance at the person across from me. In the next instant, I was struck by the boundless sorrow in his eyes. That gaze, which seemed to see right through everything, left me with nowhere to hide. The story between Joey and me wasn't some simple tale of a rich young master and a poor, naive girl. We are deeply attracted to each other and share the same core values. We are the kind of soulmates you hear about online, with an intense, almost primal physical attraction for one another. Sometimes, we understand each other even better than we understand ourselves. Joey often says we're very alike. Apart from our vastly different family backgrounds, our choices often align without prior discussion. That was precisely why Joey refused to follow his family's wishes and break up with me that year. He said a soulmate connection is one in a million. If we let it slip away, we might never find another in this lifetime, and he didn't want to live with that regret. I didn't want to have any regrets either. So that year, even though I knew the odds were against us, I still chose to stand firmly by Joey's side. At that moment, I knew instantly, Joey had probably already found out. I think, I don't love him as much anymore. I was just going through the motions with him, all pretense and empty gestures. Ningzhen. From the moment you walked in until now, you haven't asked once how I got these injuries, or how bad they are. Joey's voice was calm, but my heart kept sinking. Don't you have a single question for me? Even now, I looked at Joey and forced a smile. To be honest, I saw it a while ago, but you're the eldest son of the Zhou family, surrounded by countless bodyguards, with your grandfather watching your back. I just thought it was unlikely anything could happen to you, and I thought it was just another one of your arguments with Miss Chiao. I didn't dare ask too much, afraid of making you angry or upsetting Miss Chiao, in case she had another episode. Joey let out a sudden, derisive laugh. He lifted his gaze to meet mine, his eyes filled with a profound, heart-wrenching sorrow. For years ago, when my stomach condition flared up and I insisted on going on that business trip, and no one could talk me out of it, you were so furious your eyes turned red, you rushed over and slapped me across the face. You said you'd have the bodyguards tie me up and drag me to the hospital if you had to. Afterwards, you went out of your way to hire a nutritionist to help me recover. When I refused to eat, you threatened me with divorce. You said you didn't care if people thought you were a shrew, throwing a fit and making a scene. You were going to make sure I got my health back on track. Ningzhen, do you remember? I lowered my gaze, not daring to meet Zhou Yi's eyes at that moment. My heart was pounding, my mind was racing, trying to figure out an explanation that Joey could accept. I'm sorry, I had told the family nutritionist, maybe I wasn't home, and he forgot to mention you were injured. Miss Chiao's social media post from a couple of days ago was still talking about you two hanging out, so I thought, crash. With a deafening sound, everything on the desk, files, cups, the computer, ornaments, was violently swept to the floor. Joey shot to his feet, hands braced on the desk, leaning forward with bloodshot eyes. His ragged, heavy breathing betrayed the fury raging within him. Ningzhen, you still haven't asked. 6. I quickly leaned back against the chair, looking at him in shock and helplessness as he rapidly closed the distance. Zhou Yi's low, cold voice sounded in my ear. I'm hurt like this, and you don't even care to know if my arms and legs will heal properly, or if there will be any lasting damage. Ningzhen, what on earth am I supposed to do with you? It suddenly dawned on me that I seemed to have already messed things up before I even said a word. My brother. It seemed to confirm my suspicion. The next second, Zhou Yi's cold, icy voice rang out like a demon's. What happened to your brother? I did it. If you want me to let him go, fine, but you have to agree to one thing. I looked up quietly, gazing at the handsome face I once loved so dearly, now so close, and felt a chill settle in my heart. I heard him say, you, get on your knees and beg me. Those few short words exploded in my mind like a clap of thunder. I closed my eyes. I regretted it. Beyond our mismatched family backgrounds, there was also the overwhelming financial pressure I couldn't resist or fight against. Just like now, I had no choice but to beg Joey. Ninghai is my only brother, my only family. After our parents died in an accident, he was the one who held our family together. We're only 3 years apart, and we were both top students, yet, he gave up his chance to go to university. As soon as he turned 18, he worked tirelessly to put me through school. When I married into a wealthy family, he never tried to gain any advantage from it, afraid my in-laws would gossip or look down on him. The person I once loved most in my life was Joey, but the most important person in my life has always been my brother, Ninghai. Thump. I knelt on the ground, bowing my head in submission. My heart was at peace. Towards Joey, I held not a trace of hatred. Because this is the path I chose for myself. Are you out of your mind? It was strange. Joey was the one who told me to kneel, but when I did, he panicked more than I did. He frantically pulled me to my feet and stormed out of the study in a rage. His movements were so abrupt that he didn't even notice the cold sweat beading on his forehead from the pain. After the loud slam of a door, I stood quietly in the vast study. Tears fell like pearls from a broken string, one after another. 7. I only found out from Zhou Yi's nutritionist that he and Xiao Shuiwei had been in a car accident right after returning from abroad. It was probably due to drowsy driving, or maybe he hadn't adjusted to the time difference yet. He had been recuperating in the hospital for nearly 3 months and only returned home a few days ago. He's recovering well, and the cast on his arm is due to come off in a few days. I stayed in the guest room to collect myself, then made a point of going to the kitchen at mealtime to prepare a pork rib soup for Zhou Yi. During the meal, I watched Zhou Yi's expression and ladled a bowl for him, passing it over. I made this especially for you. Master Li said this is perfect for you right now. It's nourishing, helps you recover quickly. I tried my best to mimic my old, caring tone. Because of the earlier unpleasantness, I chose not to ask Zhou Yi about his injury directly again. Instead, I contacted the nutritionist I'm very familiar with. A savvy employee knows how to proactively communicate the right things to their employer. I hope Zhou Yi remembers that it was me who, despite being busy, personally took care of every aspect of his daily life, frequently cooking soups and meals for him by hand, and providing unwavering emotional support beyond material things. I gave him everything I possibly could. I hope he can recall my kindness and, if not for my achievements, then for my hard work and effort. Let my brother go. Hearing this, Zhou Yi's cold expression softened slightly, but he remained silent. I knew he still needed a bit more coaxing. That's all right. I can manage when it comes to coaxing Zhou Yi. I'm prepared for it to be a gradual process. The days when a single word from me could make Zhou Yi beam with delight are long gone. Between us at the dinner table, despite being famished, I barely ate a bite myself, focusing instead on serving Zhou Yi food and soup. I just hoped a good meal might lift his spirits a little. Maybe if he's in a better mood, my brother will be okay. What's this about a divorce certificate? The meal was nearly finished. Zhou Yi sipped his soup slowly, bringing up the matter as if it were an afterthought. His tone was flat, his eyes fixed on the soup bowl. I couldn't read his emotions. Filled with trepidation, I had no choice but to carefully weigh my words. I'm sorry. I went for a medical checkup recently and found out that I seem to be infertile. I'm so sorry. I was the one who went to Grandpa. For the past 5 years, you've shouldered all that pressure for me, and yet perhaps we just weren't meant to be, and Miss Chiao is the one who truly suits you best. For the sake of the company's stability and our family's harmony, I can't continue occupying this position without guilt. You deserve a proper heir. Moreover, for the past 2 years, I've felt terribly sorry for Miss Chiao. She loves you so deeply. If she could marry you and have children, I believe her illness would surely be cured. I'm sorry, Zhou Yi. In our 10 years together, it was always you giving, and I could give you nothing in return. You know, if all I can do is take from you and drain you, then I'd rather leave. I choose to walk away with nothing. From now on, I won't fall in love with anyone else. No one could ever replace the place you hold in my heart. I hope that you and Miss Chiao will find happiness and fulfillment together. I kept my head bowed, tears falling silently. By the end, my voice was choked with sobs, and I could no longer speak. Tears fell one by one into the bowl, blossoming into sorrowfully beautiful ripples, but I knew these were crocodile tears. All of these explanations were something I had agreed upon with old man Zhou. 8. Before returning to this house, I called old Master Zhou and begged him to help save my brother, but he was in a difficult position, because when Zhou Yi returned from abroad and saw our divorce certificate, he flew into a rage, his eyes blazing red as if he wanted to tear the world apart. He was no longer the green young man the Zhou family could push around. Old Master Zhou was unwilling to offend his grandson, who had already grown into a towering tree. He said Zhou Yi still had me in his heart, and was just throwing a tantrum to teach me a lesson. He promised that no matter what, he wouldn't let my brother actually go to prison. Ningzhen, your brother will only be detained for a few days. He'll be fine. You should go and placate Zhou Yi first. He's absolutely furious this time. Between the lines, he was telling me to appease Zhou Yi first, even hinting subtly that the Zhou family wouldn't interfere even if I became his mistress. Yet, he never once mentioned getting remarried because I couldn't have children, and the Zhou family absolutely needed an heir. After hanging up, I slid down the wall, clutching my chest. I was so heartbroken I couldn't speak. Their casual remark is a burden too heavy for my life to bear. What does it matter if my brother is locked up for a few days? After all, Joey was absolutely furious in that moment. I was so filled with regret that I wished I could travel back 10 years and slap some sense into my lovesick younger self. What does it mean to be brave for love? What's this about pitying Joey, and who's going to feel sorry for my brother now? Gritting my teeth, I slapped myself hard in a fit of self-loathing. A hot, stinging sensation quickly spread across my cheeks. My sister-in-law, who had heard the commotion as she passed by, walked over with a worried look and asked how my inquiries about my brother were going. I forced a smile, turned my face away, and lied without hesitation, "It's nothing serious, someone just filed a report, so it's a routine check. Joey said he'll be out in a few days at most." My sister-in-law covered her mouth, weeping with joy. She said it was wonderful and thanked Joey profusely. When I made an excuse to leave, she even bought several large bags of local specialties for me to give to him. She had no idea that it was actually Joey who had my own brother put away. 9. My brother's small company was already established before I got married. After the marriage, my brother never used the Zhou family's name to do business and always kept it completely quiet, but the fact remains that I am married to Zhou Yi. There are always people who catch the scent and come sniffing around for opportunities to collaborate, and my brother can't exactly just turn them away. That's probably why he's had it so easy these years. This time, the other party was waving the Zhou family's banner, and my brother walked right into the trap, completely off guard. As for becoming Zhou Yi's mistress now, I'm absolutely not willing. I wouldn't even want to be Mrs. Zhou anymore, let alone his mistress. But facing a behemoth like the Zhou family, if I can placate them and part ways amicably, that would be for the best. I don't want to burn bridges with Zhou Yi unless I absolutely have to, so I crafted this persona for myself. A woman who is deeply in love but unable to bear children, and who, for Zhou Yi's own happiness, must make the heartbreaking choice to step aside. No matter how painful it is. After hearing my explanation, Zhou Yi's expression became very complicated. First, there was stunned shock, then his face turned pale, finally giving way to a look of helplessness and absurdity, as if fate itself were mocking him. "We could adopt a child." After a long silence, he seemed to relent, speaking with a tone of resignation. Yet we both knew the Zhou family would never accept an heir who wasn't of their own blood, and now that they knew I couldn't bear children, it was even more impossible for them to accept me again. "This is a dead end. I'm sorry, but it seems we just weren't meant to be." With tears in my eyes, I let out a soft sigh. Just think of what we had as a mistaken encounter, a 10-year-long encounter. Joey let out a bitter laugh, leaned his head back against the chair, and stared blankly at the ceiling. I didn't know what he was thinking, but his slightly reddened eyes and trembling breaths all betrayed his sorrow. "Joey, what happened between us has nothing to do with my brother. He doesn't even know I'm divorced. My sister-in-law has been worried sick about him. Could you please let him go first? I know this isn't the best time, but I can't stand the thought of my brother staying in there for another day." I had to take a gamble, betting that Joey still had a shred of conscience left. Thankfully, Joey didn't let me down. His low, raspy voice sounded like heavenly music to my ears at that moment. "Your brother's fine. I've taken care of it. He'll be out tomorrow." I let out a long, silent sigh of relief. I'd never been so impatient for the next day to arrive. I just hoped nothing would go wrong. 10. That evening, back in the guest room, I took a change of clothes from my suitcase and went to shower. I didn't unpack anything, because I knew Joey would soon come to his senses and realize there was absolutely no chance of us getting back together. I might be able to leave very soon, so there's no need. When I came out, I was surprised to see Joey sitting on the edge of my bed, head bowed. He wasn't on his phone, just sitting there in a daze drying my hair. I walked over, feeling a little nervous. The suitcase lay quietly in the corner, its lid slightly ajar. It wasn't locked, and it looked much the same as when I had left it. He probably didn't see that, right? I clung to that sliver of hope, but the very next second, I suddenly met a pair of crimson eyes. "Ning Zhen, don't you have anything to say for yourself?" With that icy question, Joey picked up a stack of documents from the bed to his right and hurled them violently into my face. A sharp edge of paper seemed to cut my cheek, the faint sting making me gasp amidst the flurry of flying papers. I grabbed one at random. It was my miscarriage report. Scattered on the floor were the fetal images from that time. Joey found out after all. Honestly, he was bound to find out sooner or later. I ran into his special assistant at the hospital before, even though old Master Zhou warned the assistant privately to keep quiet. Given how loyal that subordinate is, and knowing him as I do, he would have told Joey sooner or later. It was inevitable. I just wish the timing could have been a bit later. Even one more day would have been better. I felt a pang of regret in my heart, but since I was already here, I had no choice but to accept it with grace. Putting on this insincere act in front of Joey is far more exhausting than I ever imagined. What's more, I don't want to wait on Xiaoshui for a single day longer. Knowing Joey as I do, he won't give up easily. Rather than dragging things out with all that uncertainty, it's better to just lay our cards on the table now. I don't want Joey to find out the truth someday and have my brother locked up again. I truly wanted a clean break. I truly wanted to preserve the beautiful memories we once shared. But I knew from the start the odds were slim. In fact, by forcing a confrontation, my chances of success are actually higher. So in that moment, I felt no panic at all. Instead, with a chilling calm, I drove the first knife into Joey. Didn't you look at the date of my miscarriage? It was the day you threw me out of the car to rush and save Xiaoshui, who'd threatened suicide God knows how many times. I begged you to at least take me back to the city, but you and the driver both blocked me. It was a torrential downpour. I didn't even have an umbrella. Half an hour after you left, I lost the baby. 2 years of hardship have made me afraid to maintain any close friendships. I fear Zhou Yi's wrath might fall upon them. To this day, in this vast city, it seems my only recourse is to turn for help to old Master Zhou, the sole person with whom I maintain a semblance of cordiality. But the road conditions were treacherous in the heavy rain. By the time I was found unconscious on the ground and bleeding from my lower body, nearly 2 hours had passed. I spent over half a month in the hospital. The only visitors were old Master Zhou, who made a brief appearance, and Mr. and Mrs. Zhou, who had never liked me from the start. When Joey and I got married, I thought the whole affair would turn into an ugly scene, but there wasn't. Mrs. Zhou remained perfectly composed, maintaining a dignified front in front of others. Our interactions were always lukewarm at best. We rarely saw each other over the years. For the past 2 years, because of Xiaoshui, I bore the brunt of Zhou Yi's misplaced anger and torment, yet she never took the opportunity to kick me while I was down. I had always assumed that was just her nature, but only now has she finally made her stance clear. Life is long, and the real winner is the one who's still smiling at the end. Look at you two, you were so in love when you got married, and now you can't stand each other. Ningzhen, I always knew you two wouldn't make it. Get a divorce. Zhou Yi despises you, and you can't have children anymore. It's better to leave with some dignity now than to be thrown out of the Zhou family by him later. Some of what Zhou's mother said really hit home. Between Joey and me, everything has changed. It's not that he stopped loving me, but that I was the first to want out. Take this very moment, for instance, the moment I simply stated the truth. Joey was so heartbroken he could hardly breathe. His face instantly turned as pale as a sheet. His eyes were vacant. His fingers clutched his chest tightly. His labored, trembling breaths like those of a dying fish. His once proud spine was now bent under the weight. Joey, let's part on good terms. Your family will never accept me again, and I can never forget that this child once existed. You must know as well as I do that our feelings for each other are nothing like they used to be. It's better if we let each other go, return to our own paths, and start over separately. I couldn't bear to look any longer and turned my face away as I spoke. If everything could end here. I didn't want to keep hurting the person I once loved so deeply, but things didn't go as I wished. When Joey looked up again, his eyes were bloodshot, and he spoke with stubborn determination. Ningzhen, after everything that's happened between me and Shuyue, how dare you think you can just start over? 12. I gave him an inscrutable look. I thought Joey had come to his senses this time, but it seems he's still not quite there yet. So, are you and Xiaoshui in this situation because of me? I tried to guide Joey into voicing his true thoughts. He certainly didn't disappoint. Isn't that the case? Shuyue is back in the country, as her childhood friend. Am I not even allowed to have a meal with her? I've already been honest with you. Yes, I had feelings for her, but that's all in the past. We're married now, and Shuyue and I have never met up alone in private. Why are you still so jealous and insecure? If it weren't for your irrational jealousy, I never would have let those two men take a drunk Shuyue away right in front of me. Then none of this would have happened to her. Ningzhen, I don't want to use overly harsh words to describe you, but for 2 years now, you've witnessed every single one of Shuyue's emotional breakdowns, her depression, her suffering, and yet, you haven't shown a shred of genuine remorse. I'm so disappointed in you. Just as I thought, the mere mention of Xiaoshui made Joey lose all sense of reason. A wave of sorrow washed over me. Zhou Yi, I wasn't lying to you. Even if my period was painless 10,000 times, it doesn't mean the next one won't be. You saw it yourself that day, the cold sweat on my face, my pale lips. I was just overworked during that period, and after getting caught in the rain and taking a cold shower the day before, my period came on suddenly with excruciating pain. Joey chose to take me to the hospital for my period cramps. leaving behind Xia Shuiwei, who was drunk after drinking with friends because she was in a bad mood. I never expected something like that to happen. What's more, I never imagined that Joey thought my pain was fake the entire time. Upon hearing this, Joey just sneered. I know he still doesn't believe me, but I'm done holding back because I've realized that my 2 years of silent endurance have been nothing but a joke. Joey, no matter what you think, I am not at fault in the slightest regarding Xia Shuiwei. The real wrongdoers were those 2 criminals, and they have already been brought to justice. If you pity Xia Shuiwei and are willing to pay for her future, fine, but don't drag me into it. After my brother is released tomorrow, I will leave. You will never see me again. You think I'm unrepentant, but I'm just as dissatisfied with you. For 2 years, you've failed to distinguish right from wrong, and you've been a profound disappointment to me. My defiant attitude must have provoked Zhou Yi, as his expression instantly twisted into a snarl. Don't even think about it. If you had a clear conscience, why would you willingly stay at the hospital for 2 years, waiting on Shuiwei? With your temper and pride, you'd never let her degrade you and trample on your dignity like that. Ningzhen, don't play the victim. You're just atoning for your own sins. And your brother, he can rot in there for all I care. He has no one to blame but himself for having a sister like you. He worked his fingers to the bone to put you through everything, but forgot to teach you basic decency. He got exactly what he deserved. Smack, tears welling in my eyes. I slapped Zhou Yi across the face with all my might so he had seen everything, all the humiliation I'd endured, and yet he chose to stay silent, to turn a blind eye and let it happen. I feel like I was blind back then, and now I'm dragging my brother into this mess. Of course, it's not for Xia Shuiwei. I know she's been faking her illness the whole time. It's for, I paused, but Joey pressed on aggressively. For what? I'd like to see what excuse you can possibly come up with now. I closed my eyes, letting the tears fall slowly. It was for you. From the moment Xia Shuiwei got into trouble, Zhou Yi's heart was in turmoil. The one who was truly sick was never Xia Shuiwei, but my Zhou Yi. 13 For 2 years, Zhou Yi was like a man possessed. The moment he faced Xia Shuiwei, he would obey unconditionally. No matter how outrageous her actions were, he always found a way to justify them. The therapist told me that Zhou Yi's life had been too smooth sailing up to that point. He had scarcely encountered the darker side of human nature. So, when he learned that his former white moonlight goddess had met a tragic fate due to his own negligence, his entire world shattered in an instant. This is a man who fell ill precisely because he was too upright and kind-hearted. He is still my soulmate. I have absolutely no reason to give up on him, but I never expected this silent salvation ended up draining every last drop of my love for Zhou Yi. At first, I thought you'd come to your senses in a month, or maybe 2, at most, half a year, but then, 3 months ago, I lost the baby. I understand now. I can't save you. Perhaps only by being with Xia Shuiwei can you truly heal. That's why I chose to leave. Zhou Yi, I'm truly exhausted. Let's part ways amicably. I know you well enough. You'd never actually have my brother sent to prison. You were just trying to scare me, but please, don't joke about things like that. My sister-in-law and nephew were terrified. Tears streamed down Zhou Yi's face in heavy drops. He suddenly stood up, rushed over, and pulled me into a desperate embrace, planting frantic, scattered kisses all over my face. I was only stunned for a moment before turning my face away impatiently. Perhaps my gesture was too distant. As a flicker of hurt crossed Zhou Yi's face, he spoke. His voice choked with emotion. Ningzhen, don't you love me anymore? So, you don't love me at all anymore? I looked at him calmly. You already know the answer, don't you? There are 2 things in this world that cannot be hidden, love and a cough. Not loving someone is also a choice. A flash of unhinged ferocity instantly broke through Zhou Yi's expression. What about your brother? I cut him off. Zhou Yi, I haven't been Mrs. Zhou for 5 years for nothing. If you push me, be prepared to see yourself and Xia Shuiwei splashed across the headlines, and your company. You wouldn't want me showing up at your rival's firm, would you? So don't force my hand. I know you could never bring yourself to cross that moral line. Let's end it here. If possible, I'd rather not draw swords against someone I once loved, but if he hurts my brother then I won't hesitate either. 14 Zhou Yi Side Story 1 It only took 2 years to go from physical attraction to physical revulsion. That night, when I tried to force myself on Ningzhen, I was caught off guard and wounded by the unmistakable disgust in her eyes. In the end, I backed off. I don't know how things between Ningzhen and I ended up like this. She guards against me as if I were her sworn enemy. Of course, I can't push Ningzhen into a corner with no way out. That would truly destroy any chance we have left. I need to think this through carefully. After letting Ningzhen go, I meticulously replayed every single thing I had done over the past 2 years. I realized what a complete bastard I had been. I was wrong from the very beginning. The night Shuiwei had her accident, I had already lost control since childhood. I practiced rigorous self-discipline, holding myself to the highest standards in both capability and character. My life was always perfectly under control. That night, it felt as if my own moon had been violently torn from the sky and cast into the mud. I lost my mind in an instant. I knew it wasn't Ningxin's fault. I was just looking for an excuse to condemn her from my self-righteous moral high ground. I hadn't realized it. Yet too much adulation can cloud one's judgment and stir up restless thoughts. The effusive flattery from colleagues and business partners, the subtle hints of praise from family, and Ningxin's unwavering, devoted care. It made me completely forget how difficult it was for Ningxin and me to finally come together. In the beginning, I had lost all reason to the point of placing my white moonlight above Ningxin, venting my pain onto her without a second thought. I had forgotten that in this world, no one is truly indispensable to another. Ningxin doesn't know that my car accident wasn't caused by fatigue at all. It happened because, after our trip ended and I returned home to find the divorce papers, I drove like a madman to find her and crashed from speeding. During those 3 months of recovery, my mind had long since cleared, but I didn't dare admit it. I tried to keep blaming Ningxin from my moral high ground, yet, under Ningxin's cold indifference, my defenses slowly crumbled. Piece by piece, I confirmed that her feelings for me had vanished completely. Ningxin is a very clever person. If I were to lose my mind like I did in the past couple of years, she would coax and deceive me into letting her go. If I regained my senses and she couldn't fool me, she'd lay out the facts and explain the pros and cons, forcing me to back down. I could only watch helplessly as she slipped through my fingers like sand. 2. I sent Xiao Shuiwei away. Her family went bankrupt 2 years ago. Otherwise, she wouldn't have come back to me. And no one would have dared to lay a finger on the young lady of the Chow family. I do have some lingering affection for her from our youth, but that's all there is to it. Ningxin and I are the most compatible people in the world. We trust and understand each other completely. After I took back the house and money I had given Xiao Shuiwei, she refused to accept it and came crying and making a scene at both my home and my office. As I looked at the woman sobbing pitifully on the floor, it suddenly dawned on me. All these years, I had been fooling myself. I had mistaken a worthless pebble for a precious pearl in Xiao Shuiwei, yet the real pearl, I had cast aside onto the ground. After thinking it all through, I was so upset that night I couldn't sleep. I took 2 sleeping pills, but still slept fitfully. In my dream, I saw Ningxin smiling at that lanky, dopey-looking senior from the class next door. Not long ago, Ningxin returned to the workforce, and it just so happened to be at that senior's company. He had pursued her once, but was flatly rejected. As I passed by Ningxin's company, I happened to see him fawning over her, fetching tea and water, bustling about with great enthusiasm. Is it really appropriate for a company vice president to be buttering up a junior employee like that? His intentions to pursue Ningxin are so obvious. Even a blind man could see it. What a pity, all his efforts are in vain. Ningxin would never like him. I started making my presence known to Ningxin more often, deliberately picking on that shameless senior. But on one occasion, I happened to overhear a conversation between Ningxin and him. As for my ex-husband, it's just not possible anymore. He's a bit terrifying. When we were going through the divorce, he had my brother put away. How scary is that? If he gets upset, he's willing to send my brother to prison. Who's to say that one day, if he gets upset, he won't just stab me? Oh, really? Ha ha ha. So you don't like kids either. When I left, I was in tears. I know Ningxin's words were meant for me. I crossed her line, and she will never look back. But I don't believe that sycophantic VP when he says he doesn't like kids. They're all only child heirs from wealthy families. I absolutely refuse to believe his parents would let him be child-free. 3. After 2 years of bitter medicine, Ningxin gave birth to a pair of twins, a boy and a girl. That vice president kept showing up around me, always with that passive-aggressive attitude. They say one generation plants the trees under whose shade another generation rests. So, Mr. Zhou, why is it that some predecessors only seem to dig holes? I kept my eyes downcast and said nothing. He's got a full house with both a son and a daughter, and here I am, still flying solo even though they have 2 kids together. Ningxin refuses to make it official with him. It's definitely because he's not measuring up. What a joke. I left the party early. I only had 2 drinks. But for some reason, I'm feeling a bit lightheaded. Back home, I dug out that crudely wrapped cardboard box from the very bottom of the drawer. Take out the note inside. The familiar handwriting on it had grown faint from my constant touching. It was a question and an answer. What is physical attraction? It's a loss of reason, a moth drawn to the flame. It's knowing the impossible, Yet striving for it anyway. The date at the bottom was from when Ning Zhen and I lived together in that rented apartment. I had always thought, in this relationship, I stooped low and endured countless hardships for Ning Zhen. Even if I became a bit arrogant later on, it was only right for her to bear with it. It wasn't until I saw that note that I finally understood. It turns out that while I was fighting for love, Ning Zhen was also swimming against the tide. I finally came to my senses, but it was already too late. The end. That's the end of the first story. I hope you enjoyed it. The next ones are even more thrilling, so let's keep going. The 10th year by the young mafia master's side. These hands, meant for healing, were instead used to dismember bodies and clean up blood for him. Beneath my white coat, a bulletproof vest was a permanent fixture. Yet he fell in love at first sight with the albino patient I was treating. He called her his snow elf, lavishing a fortune to build her a private ice castle, shielding her from the world in an impenetrable cocoon. That was, until I stumbled upon the marriage registry and saw the word divorced staring back at me. I confronted him in a frenzy, but Fu Hanqing casually lit a cigarette. Luolua's health is fragile. I promised her a proper wedding. I can give you any compensation you want. Consumed by resentment, I publicly slapped Su Luoluo at their wedding that very night. My gravely ill mother was tied to the front of a dump truck. Shuyu, you shouldn't have touched Luoluo. This is your lesson. I knelt on the ground, begging him to stop, but as he slammed the accelerator, my mother's blood and flesh sprayed across my face. Clutching my cramping abdomen, I screamed and blacked out. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day I discovered I had been divorced. This time, I didn't dare ask any questions. I bought a plane ticket that very night, determined to flee with my mother to a place Fu Hanqing could never find us. Ms. Shu, the system indicates you are currently listed as divorced. The clerk's polite voice jolted me back to reality. My eyes were wide with terror, and the metallic scent of my mother's blood seemed to linger in my nostrils. I asked with difficulty, when did you file for divorce? July 12th. A sharp pain shot through my heart. July 12th was our 7th wedding anniversary. That day, I had bought flowers and candles, and had meticulously prepared a table full of dishes. I waited until the candles melted and the roses wilted, but Fu Hanqing never showed up. So that's where he was, filing for divorce. Swallowing the bitter lump in my throat, I got up to leave, only to spot that familiar Maybach just as I was about to exit the Civil Affairs Bureau. In my past life, I would have charged over without a second thought to demand an explanation, fearing that Su Luoluo would discover our relationship. Fu Hanqing smashed the butt of his pistol against my jaw, shattering it. At that thought, I quickly ducked behind the fire door. Moments later, the car came to a stop. The usually domineering and imperious Fu Hanqing, acting like a mere valet, walked around to the passenger side, opened the door, and raised an umbrella to block the scorching sun. Su Luoluo was pure white from head to toe, with silver hair and gray eyes. Standing in the sunlight, she looked like a snowman that might melt at any moment. Fu Hanqing gently guided her inside. Su Luoluo pressed her pale lips together, fidgeting nervously. Mr. Fu, do you really intend to marry me? Of course, I've been dreaming of this day. Su Luoluo placed a hand on her slightly rounded belly, but my illness could be passed on to the child. Fu Hanqing's gaze was tender and doting. I don't care, you're the little sprite heaven sent me. I only want children born from you. A sudden, sharp pain shot through my lower abdomen. I clutched my stomach tightly, tears welling up in my eyes. Only after I saw them walk into the civil affairs office did I hail a cab and head to the hospital. As I lay on the operating table, my senior colleague from the same mentor advised me, Xiaoyu, your uterine wall is naturally thinner than most. This might be the only child you'll ever have. With red-rimmed eyes, I whispered softly, I'm divorced. This child, it's not the right time. A cold liquid was injected into my body, and my consciousness began to fade. In a daze, I saw Fu Hanqing, who once pressed his ear against my abdomen, smiling as he said he wanted to hear the baby's heartbeat. I saw him flipping through the dictionary, saying he wanted to give our child a good name. I saw him holding me, promising to be a good father. Finally, all the scenes froze on him holding Su Luoluo, saying, I only want a child born from you. An hour later, I walked into my mother's hospital room, my face deathly pale. She slept peacefully with the help of a ventilator. I signed the transfer application decisively. I'll handle all the transfer procedures myself. Keep it quiet, and above all, don't tell Mr. Fu. Immediately after, I picked up my phone and booked a flight to Switzerland for 1 week later. When the booking confirmation text from the airline arrived, the tension that had been gripping me finally began to ease, just a little. Fu Hanqing, this time, I'm the one leaving you. When I left the hospital, the setting sun had already sunk below the horizon. I was driving in a daze, having just turned the corner suddenly, an out-of-control truck came barreling straight toward me. I swerved the wheel hard, but it was too late. The world spun violently before everything went black. I was pinned in the driver's seat, unable to move. I didn't need to think twice. I knew it was Fu Hanqing's enemies coming for revenge. My phone was shattered and wouldn't turn on. Just then, a familiar black Maybach drove past the intersection. It was Fu Hanqing's car. Fu Hanqing, I shouted with all my might, struggling to get his attention. My heart nearly stopped the moment the car slowed down. He saw me, but the next second, the car accelerated again and sped away from the intersection without hesitation. Through the car window, I saw Fu Hanqing raise his hand to cover Su Luolua's eyes. I lost the strength to speak in an instant. Su Luolua was in the car. He wouldn't stop. It was a scene of vengeance and a car crash. He couldn't bear for Su Luolua to witness it. The last of my strength was fading, and my consciousness began to blur. When I opened my eyes again, I was staring at the stark white ceiling of a hospital room. The door was ajar, and I overheard one of Fu Hanqing's subordinates speaking to him. Mr. Fu, what if Mrs. Fu sees Miss Su? If she starts digging, we might not be able to keep it hidden. Fu Hanqing flicked away his cigarette butt and crushed it underfoot. Don't worry about any of that. Your only job is to protect Luoluo. She's too pure, not like the rest of us. Shuyu has plenty of dirty tricks up her sleeve. Luoluo is too naive. She's no match for her. If necessary, we can use Shuyu's seriously ill mother. She's her only remaining family. Shuyu can't ignore that. I clenched the sheets, biting down hard on the soft flesh inside my cheek. Back when he proposed to me, he said, I will protect you. I won't let you come to any harm. The same protective instinct, the same promise, but now it was directed at Su Luoluo. The person he once shielded so carefully behind him has now become the dangerous schemer he denounces. Hearing the approaching footsteps, I closed my eyes again, then slowly opened them. You're awake. I had someone look into it. It was the Wang family's people. This is the settlement agreement, sign it, and they've agreed to give up the land in the West District. He walked up to me, our eyes met. I was left speechless. I nearly got killed, only to become a bargaining chip in his business deal. My heart turned to ice. Fu Hanqing, when did you decide this? Was it the second you saw my car crash, or when you found out the Wang family was coming for me? Fu Hanqing's brow furrowed slightly, displeased by my probing. I knew better than to ask again. Spelling things out wouldn't do me any good. As if to placate me, Fu Hanqing has been working from my hospital room these past 2 days. He just kept his headphones on constantly, a faint, familiar smile occasionally playing on his lips. It suddenly came back to me, the scene of our first meeting 10 years ago. Back then, he was being hunted by enemies, lying in a filthy, dark alley, covered in blood, like a beast cornered in a desperate situation. Fierce yet vulnerable. I should have called the police, but the moment our eyes met, my heart went out to him. I turned and walked toward him. Little did I know, that single step plunged me into an abyss. Later, he took a bullet to the chest while shielding me. The 18-hour fight for his life in the operating room. It was the first time I realized that in his world, innocence and kindness couldn't protect anyone. In 10 years, I went from being the most promising surgeon at a top-tier hospital to an infamous back-alley doctor in the underworld. I thought we could stand side by side as equals, but to him, I was no different from the others. Just as tainted. I look at these hands, slender, supple, they should be holding a scalpel to heal and save lives, yet what they do most is dissect corpses and clean up crime scenes. I thought of Su Luoluo again, as pure and crystalline as the first snow of winter. Suddenly, it all felt so pointless. All my resentment and bitter frustration just hit a wall of cotton, utterly futile. After being discharged from the hospital, Fu Hanqing used a business trip as an excuse and never came back. The day before my flight, I wanted to pray for my departed child, but then I unexpectedly ran into Su Luoluo. When I arrived at the church, Su Luoluo was tending to a little girl's wound. Perhaps I pressed too hard. The girl shrieked, flinging her hand away and splattering the antiseptic everywhere. I walked over and took the cotton swab from her hand. There's still a piece of glass in the wound. Applying medicine now will only push it in deeper. This was the first time Su Luoluo and I had been alone together since Fu Hanqing's affair. Unaware that I was Fu Hanqing's ex-wife, she looked at me with a face full of pleasant surprise. Dr. Shu, you've come at just the right time. I gave a faint smile, finding my heart was calmer than I had imagined. She told me about how she'd been lately and took my hand to feel her belly. Dr. Shu, if it weren't for you, I would have died in that car accident. When my baby is born, will you be her godmother? The slightly rounded belly held another heartbeat within. I suddenly remembered the indistinct mass of flesh and blood I had glimpsed in the medical waste bin that day as I left the operating room. My palm stung as if pricked by a needle, and I jerked my hand back. Su Luoluo stared at me, bewildered. I'm sorry, I just lost my child. Suluolua's eyes instantly welled up with tears, flustered and at a loss. She apologized to me, even kneeling before the statue of the Virgin Mary to pray devoutly. Lord, please guide this pure soul back to heaven and comfort the grieving mother. I was stunned, and even felt a pang of pity for her. I wanted to tell her to leave Fu Hanqing. Getting close to him only brings you closer to misery, but as I stared at Suluolua's belly, I chose to seal my lips shut. If Suluolua found out about my relationship with Fu Hanqing, she would be devastated and break up with him. When the time comes, Fu Hanqing will surely go mad with revenge against me. Bloody memories from a past life flooded my mind. Using confession as an excuse, I hid inside the confessional. I opened the surveillance feed from my mother's sanatorium, and only when I saw her taking a leisurely stroll in the garden did my nerves finally settle. My mother is my only family this time. I absolutely will not drag her into the world between Fu Hanqing and me again. When I had composed myself and stepped out of the confessional, the cold, dark muzzle of a gun pressed against my forehead. Every muscle in my body tensed up instantly, and I snapped my gaze towards Suluoluo. She had already collapsed limply on the ground. I cursed my rotten luck under my breath, only to be knocked unconscious by a rifle. But the next second, when I came to again, I found myself in an abandoned warehouse, tied up together with Suluoluo. Suluoluo's voice trembled with tears. The debt was paid off long ago. What more do you want? Hanqing warned you. A sharp slap cut Suluoluo off. The leader, a man with a scarred face, grabbed her by the hair. Sure, he paid the money back, but he broke 3 of our boss's ribs, in our line of work. How are we supposed to swallow that kind of insult? Since he's so fond of you, I'm gonna take my sweet time torturing you to death today. So they're just bottom-feeding loan sharks. No wonder they didn't recognize me. I caught my breath, flicked the blade out from my ring, and started sawing through the ropes. This isn't my first time being kidnapped, so I've picked up a thing or two. Seeing I was awake, the man with the scarred face rifled through my Hermes wallet. Miss Shu, tough luck. 3 million. Tell your family to wire the money. Dr. Shu, I'm so sorry I got you into this, but don't be afraid. My husband is formidable. He'll come for us. Her eyes were filled with adoration, as if she regarded Fu Hanqing as her savior. My hand stilled for a moment, and I didn't respond to her. Suddenly, Scarface cursed with a furious fuck, raised his phone, and snarled, damn it, he dares not believe me. Looks like I'll have to send him a little gift. He flung the knife down before me and Suluoluo. Guards, cut the child from her womb and deliver it to him. My pupils instantly contracted. If Suluoluo died here today, he would surely tear me to pieces in his rage. Suluoluo was so terrified she wept uncontrollably, shrinking back again and again. Please, I'm begging you. Don't do this to me. Don't hurt my child. Her white dress was stained with dirt, her nose red from crying, like a little white rabbit that had stumbled into a den of wolves. Her falling tears only served to fuel the violent desires of these madmen. Damn, boss, let us have a go at her first. This chick is too hot to handle. Seeing them about to drag Suluoluo away, I cut through the ropes and charged forward. I rammed into Scarface and shielded Suluoluo behind me. What the hell are you all standing around for? Get them. The blonde guy clutched his nose, let out a furious roar, and his lackeys swarmed in all at once. Beat him up for me, beat him to a pulp, then we'll take our time with him. I was hopelessly outnumbered, so I could only shield Suluoluo tightly beneath me. Dr. Shu, please stop hitting him. She screamed and tried to push me away, begging them to stop. Utter despair washed over her. At that moment, the iron gate was smashed open with a crash by an SUV. Gunfire erupted from all sides. All eyes turned to the doorway. Fu Hanqing rushed towards Suluoluo and pulled her into a tight embrace. Thank goodness you're alright, Suluoluo cried until her voice gave out, and in her exhausted state, she fainted on the spot. He carried Suluoluo onto the ambulance, gently smoothing her stray hairs. I picked myself up from the ground, meeting Fu Hanqing's icy gaze. My heart sank. Shuyu, his voice was soft, yet it froze the blood in my veins for an instant. Why are you with her? I swallowed the metallic taste in my throat and forced a smile. We just ran into each other. Do you believe that? A vicious slap sent me crashing to the ground. Shuyu, do you even think before you lie? I spat out a mouthful of blood, never revealing it was all to pray for our child's blessing. He stomped on my fingers, grinding them under his heel. The searing pain tore a scream from my throat. When did you start planning this? I didn't. Fu Hanqing spun around and fired a shot into Scar's thigh, then leveled the gun at his head. Didn't she have one? Scarface cried out in pain, pointing a trembling finger at me. It was Miss Shu who came to me first. She offered me money to get revenge on Suluoluo. You're lying, I snapped, cutting him off sharply. but his man held my shoulders down firmly. Fu Hanqing let out a low chuckle, then promptly put a bullet through Scarface's head. Shuyu. He crouched down and gripped my hand tightly. You harmed my precious treasure. Now you'll pay with something of equal value. With a sickening crack, he snapped my index finger. Ah, the pain was so intense my vision went black, my entire body convulsing. Fu Hanqing, how dare you do this to me? He stood up, straightening his cuffs, and said coolly, break the rest of them. Do it. 2 words, uttered with chilling lightness. I was slammed roughly against an oil drum, my hands forced open. Fu Hanqing, I screamed hysterically, I hate you. I never should have saved you 10 years ago. His retreating figure hesitated for just a moment. In the end, he never looked back. Before the searing pain hit, I remembered how he'd held my hand to his lips, kissing it again and again. My Dr. Shu's hands are priceless, he'd say. They have the magic touch to bring life back from the brink. 10 years ago, I pulled him back from the very brink of hell. A decade later, he severed the last thread connecting us with his own hands. 3 o'clock in the morning, I lay limp in the abandoned factory. My fingers twisted at grotesque angles. Several aides rushed over, carrying medical equipment. The factory behind me was engulfed in roaring flames. I sat in the car heading to the airport, a cold sweat covering my brow. Once the plane is airborne, destroy all records of my identity, immediately. I want the name Shuyu to vanish from the face of the earth. In the hospital, the moment Su Luoluo regained consciousness, Fu Hanqing dropped to one knee to apologize, blaming himself for failing to protect her. Su Luoluo merely shook her head and instead asked about me. What about Dr. Shu, is she alright? Fu Hanqing gently stroked Su Luoluo's head. Why are you so kind? I really love you like this. Su Luoluo felt her cheeks flush from his words, and she even forgot to ask again about my situation. Only after Su Luoluo had fallen asleep did Fu Hanqing leave the hospital room and instruct his subordinate, take the divorce papers to Shuyu, and transfer 40% of my shares to her as well. Make sure she's out of the villa before dawn. But the next day, Fu Hanqing waited at the corporate headquarters in vain for Shuyu to appear. He held back his frustration, watching the messages he'd sent vanish into the void. Beyond the irritation, a vague, unsettling feeling lingered in his heart. Shuyu had never ignored his messages before. Where is she? How many times does he have to ask? His subordinate stood by, hesitating before he spoke. Mr. Fu, your wife might be at the hospital. Fu Hanqing's brow furrowed slightly as he suddenly remembered. Yesterday, he had apparently ordered someone to break all 10 of Shuyu's fingers. No wonder she hadn't replied to his messages. He handed the divorce certificate to his subordinate, his voice cold. Find the hospital where Madam is receiving treatment and give this to her. Just as the subordinate was about to turn and leave, Fu Hanqing called him back. After you locate Madam, leave a few men to keep watch. She's highly vindictive and might resort to underhanded tactics against Luoluo. The moment you discover Madam is harboring any improper thoughts, send her straight to Qingshan Psychiatric Hospital. She is not to be released until Su Luoluo's child is born. That evening, Fu Hanqing returned home. The master bedroom was spotless, with no trace of Shuyu to be found. That familiar sense of unease washed over him again. He was just about to call his subordinates to inquire. The sound of a piano drifted up from downstairs. She's back, of course. Where else could she possibly go but here? But over the years, her fangs have grown sharper. He needed to use this chance to file them down properly, or she would surely hurt Su Luoluo. With this thought in mind, Fu Hanqing went downstairs and pushed open the door to the music room. Under the moonlight, the girl's hair cascaded like a waterfall as her fingers danced lightly across the piano keys. It was a scene of pure, picture-perfect beauty. Yet, Fu Hanqing's eyes suddenly darkened. Who gave you permission to touch this piano? He built this piano for Shuyu with his own hands. Those hands, so skilled with a scalpel, were equally suited for the piano. On every night after she had cleaned the scene for him, Shuyu would always play Mozart's Requiem here. He knew she was atoning for her sins. The music came to an abrupt halt. Su Luoluo looked up in a panic, meeting Fu Hanqing's somewhat icy gaze. The butler said I could look around. Sorry. Seeing the tears welling in Su Luoluo's eyes, Fu Hanqing's stern expression softened. He stepped forward and drew her into his embrace. I didn't mean to snap at you. It's just, this piano was my late wife's keepsake. If you like it, I'll have a new one custom made for you. Alright. Su Luoluo's heart ached for him, and the sting of his earlier sharpness melted away completely. Even after 5 years since his wife's passing, such a bond of affection still remained. She was increasingly convinced that Fu Hanqing was a good husband and would also make a wonderful father. At 3 o'clock in the morning, Fu Hanqing's phone rang frantically. It was one of his subordinates. His finger, poised to answer the call, hovered in the air for a second. Having spent years in the underworld, he had a keen sense for danger. He had a gut feeling that the moment he answered this call, he was about to lose something of great importance. The call connected, and his assistant's frantic voice came through the receiver. Mr. Fu, Madam is missing. We can't find her anywhere, but I found Madam's medical records. I think you need to see them. Mr. Fu Hanxing was about to hang up. The voice on the other end hesitated, then added, there's one more thing, Mr. Fu, your wife has found out about the divorce. When Su Luolua woke up, she saw Fu Hanxing sitting motionless on the balcony, the floor littered with cigarette butts. What happened? Could it be that something went wrong with the case he's handling? Working at the procuratorate is truly demanding. Fu Hanxing looked up at the sound, fixing Su Luolua with an intense gaze. He spent last night poring over the documents his subordinates had sent, reading them again and again. Shuyu is pregnant. The day of the abortion was the very same day he and Luo registered their marriage. The two events were barely an hour apart. He understood in an instant. Shuyu must have seen him and Luo at the registry office, yet she had the audacity to abort his child. At first, he was burning with the urge to drag Shuyu before him and demand an explanation. Turning his head, he saw Luo standing in the moonlight. Her white dress and silver hair seemed to melt into the night, beautiful yet ethereal, like a ghost about to fade away. She was nothing like that scheming woman. Perhaps it was for the best. After all, they were divorced now and had long since severed their ties. Her leaving actually saved so much trouble. He really ought to thank Shuyu. Work matters have been taken care of. Don't worry. Fu Hanxing stood up and closed the balcony window. I'll go take care of this first. The smell of smoke isn't good for you or the baby. Su Luo nodded with satisfaction. Fu Hanxing entered the bathroom and returned a call to his subordinate. Go and raid the loan shark's den, leave no one behind, cut off all their fingers and feed them to the dogs. Su Luo became the new mistress of the estate. True to his promise, Fu Hanxing had a new piano custom made for her. For a time, she felt she was the happiest woman in the world. Meanwhile, Fu Hanxing took over all the affairs left behind by Shuyu. The scent of blood and aura of killing intent around him grew ever stronger. Every time I came home and saw Su Luolua's pure, innocent face again, I felt utterly drained. In the end, she wasn't like Shuyu. She couldn't help her deal with this dirty business. He still had to pretend to be one of those sanctimonious inspectors in front of her. That day, after dealing with the traitor within the organization, just as I was about to pick up a little cake for Su Luoluo as usual, my attention was suddenly caught by a medical debate playing on the screen in the shop. On the screen, that familiar face was confident, spirited, and brimming with vitality, like a red rose blooming in the spring. The colors are so vibrant and dazzling, they outshine even the purest white snow. Fu Hanxing stood in the shop for a long time. Even after Shuyu's speech ended, his heart was still pounding wildly. Fu Hanxing spent a long time in Shuyu's piano room, a place he hadn't visited in ages. A layer of dust had settled on the piano, which had gone unused for so long, yet all the memories between him and Shuyu seemed to have the dust brushed away, growing clearer by the moment. At their first meeting, she stood under an umbrella in a white dress, descending into his world like an angel. That year, Shuyu had just graduated from university. He held on to Shuyu, keeping her in his world at all costs. Shuyu was the only outlet for his repressed, blood-soaked life. She was different from the others. Only by Shuyu's side could he find that sliver of peace. He had once sworn to protect him for a lifetime, to love him forever. When did it all begin to change? It was Shuyu who gradually grew into the role, taking on the responsibilities he handed over. It was Shuyu who shielded him from half the darkness in the world. The scalpel was raised no longer to save lives. She was becoming more and more like him. Long forgotten, suppressed emotions surged forth once more. At this moment, Fu Hanxing had only one thought. He wanted her back, by his side, by any means necessary. He was, by nature, a man who was true to his desires. After a moment of silence, Fu Hanxing took out his phone and called his subordinate. Find out where my wife is. Tear the world apart if you have to. I want her found. Even if she's dead, she will die in my arms. The subordinate hesitated on the other end. Mr. Fu, the mistress has been missing for so long. I'm afraid her trail has gone cold. Fu Hanxing's brow furrowed slightly. If you can't find her, find her mother. Someone that seriously ill must be in a sanatorium, especially a high-end private one abroad. She wouldn't neglect her own mother. The call ended. Su Luoluo stood at the entrance to the music room. Hansen, who are you looking for? Fu Hansen snapped back to reality, offering no explanation. It's work-related. You don't need to worry about it. A flicker of unease crossed Su Luoluo's expression, but she managed a smile, sitting down at the piano bench. It's been a long time since I last played. What would you like to hear? Fu Hanqing felt a momentary daze, as if the familiar strains of music were once again sounding in his ears. I'd like to hear Mozart's Requiem. Su Luoluo was taken aback for a moment. It was a very niche piece of music. Alright, I'll play it for you. For several days in a row, there was not a single piece of news. Even Shuyu's mother had been hidden away very well, incompetent. All of you are useless. Can't you even find one living person that big? He swept everything off the desk in one furious motion. What are you still standing around for? Get out there and find her. He had never felt such agitation before. With each day he couldn't see Shuyu, a deeper emptiness grew within him. He was dead drunk in the wine cellar. Su Luoluo cautiously pushed the door open. Fu Hanqing was in a bad state. At first, he could still fool himself into thinking it was just work-related stress, but that day, he overheard Fu Hanqing's conversation in the music room. Is his wife really dead? Su Luoluo's hand instinctively moved to her noticeably rounded belly. After a moment's hesitation, she crouched down, intending to help Fu Hanqing up. Hanqing, let's go back to the room. I've made you some sobering soup. Fu Hanqing stared at her face in a daze for a long while without saying a word. He gently cupped her face and placed a kiss full of tender affection. Su Luoluo's face flushed, the smile at the corner of her mouth not yet fully formed. Then she heard Fu Hanqing say, I miss you so much, Shuyu. Her blood ran cold in that instant. The next day, when Fu Hanqing came downstairs, he saw Su Luoluo sitting in the living room waiting for him. The wedding invitations were laid out on the coffee table. Before Fu Hanqing could speak, Su Luoluo ventured to ask, Hanqing, I've spoken to the doctor. The baby's condition is very stable now. We can go ahead with the wedding. In the past, he would have been overjoyed to hear that Su Luoluo was willing to marry him, but now, an inexplicable restlessness had begun to stir within him. He sat down and pulled Su Luoluo into his embrace. There have been so many cases lately, and I'm not in a good state. Has it been affecting you? Su Luoluo forced a strained smile. I'm asking you, when are we going to have the wedding and make it public? I don't want others to misunderstand anymore. If you don't like me, just tell me directly. I'll leave quietly. Fu Hanqing's expression froze for a moment before he soothed her, saying, how about next week? We'll hold the ceremony next week and announce it publicly. Don't overthink things, just focus on resting well for the pregnancy. Okay. Su Luoluo lowered her gaze to hide the desolation in her eyes and gave a soft, quiet After Fu Hanqing left, she didn't stay at home. Instead, she went to the Fu Corporation, the company whose logo was on the documents in Fu Hanqing's study. Without an appointment, she couldn't get past the main entrance, so she waited outside, hoping to intercept someone. She had just one question. Do you know Shuyu? A person heard Shuyu's name and stared at her warily. Soon after, Su Luoluo's mind grew hazy. She couldn't even remember how she got home. The basement door was open. The sounds of screams and pleas for mercy kept coming from inside. Fu Hanqing had the man chained like a dog and forced onto broken glass. Utterly brutal. Fu Hanqing, I already handed over the land in the West District to you. What the hell else do you want? A piece of land? What is that compared to my wife? You should have known what was coming when you laid a hand on her. The man's face was covered in blood. Knowing he was a dead man, he sneered, determined to make Fu Hanqing's life hell. I saw you when she had the accident. You were with your little mistress. What's with the act now? Playing the devoted lover. You make me sick. Fu Hanqing cut out his tongue. Fu Hanqing's knuckles cracked, his eyes simmering with a quiet madness. This was his true face, not the prosecutor who had mourned his late wife for 5 years, but the young mafia heir with blood on his hands. Su Luoluo fled the basement in a panic. She rushed upstairs and frantically stuffed her clothes into a suitcase. She had to go. She had to get out of here. Fu Hanqing caught up and saw Su Luoluo's eyes were red-rimmed, instantly knowing she had just witnessed it. Luoluo, those were just necessary measures. He hurt me, and he got what he deserved. Su Luoluo, tears welling in her eyes, stopped what she was doing. Shuyu saved me. When those people tried to hurt me, she shielded me with her own body. She's such a good person, I can't do her wrong. A flicker of panic flashed in Fu Hanqing's eyes. Su Luoluo knew everything. He quickly stepped forward, grabbed Su Luoluo's hand, and explained, I didn't mean to deceive you by hiding my identity. I just have many difficulties. You have to understand me. You should understand me. Doesn't God forgive everything? Su Luoluo pushed his hand away, tears streaming down her face. God will not forgive me, nor will he forgive you. We are all sinners, guilty. Do you know why she came to the church that day? Why? Fu Hanqing's heart sank. She was there to hold a mass for his deceased child. She truly loved you and her child. Fu Hanqing's hand, which had reached out to stop her, fell limply to his side. A long time passed. A heart-wrenching roar suddenly tore through the silence. What on earth had he done? I spent nearly 3 months in a New York hospital, undergoing 7 surgeries on my 10 fingers. Every time the pain woke me in the dead of night, I would go up to the hospital rooftop and sit there, numb and empty, and that was when I met Jiang Yunan. He broke his leg in a street race after making a bet, then snuck out against his doctor's orders to come up here and drink beer. I asked him if he won the bet. He grinned, wild and bright. Of course I won, by 0.01 seconds. See, I never lose. On the day I was discharged from the hospital, he stopped me, his face flushed, and handed me a love letter. In that moment, my heart, which I thought had died, seemed to beat once more. I only found out later that he was the young master of a local crime family. He grew up under the protection of his older siblings. When he spoke of the family business, his eyes lit up with unmistakable ambition. He was like a young leopard, just coming into its prime. I couldn't help but be drawn to him, but, learning from past mistakes, our relationship remained stuck in the more than friends, less than lover stage. I picked up my old dream again. I applied to volunteer at the local Red Cross. Jiang Yinan would come pick me up from work whenever he had the time. That day, I waited outside the hospital for nearly 10 minutes, but there was still no sign of him. Just as I was on the phone telling him I'd head home first, a black van screeched to a halt right in front of me, its door sliding open. Before I could even let out a cry for help, a hand clamped over my mouth and I was dragged inside. After a long, bumpy ride, the blindfold was ripped from my eyes once more. It was Fu Hanqing's face I saw. Long time no see. My hand shot up and I slapped him. What do you think you're doing? This isn't China. He ran his tongue over the inside of his cheek, the one I'd slapped red, showing not a hint of anger. Then he offered the other side of his face. Do the other one too, honey. I took an instinctive step back, completely baffled by what he was doing. Fu Hanqing, you can't possibly be unaware that I've already divorced you. I stepped aside and didn't stand in your way. What more could you possibly want from me? A flicker of desolation passed through his eyes. I've been looking for you for so long. I've missed you. Miss me? He's still wearing the wedding ring from our marriage. What on earth is he trying to do? Has Shuyu already registered their marriage with him? Let's go home, in your dreams, Fu Hanqing. I hate you, and that will never change. His eyes welled up with tears. I know everything now. I know about our child. Let's start over. This time, I swear I'll protect you. I won't let anyone hurt you ever again. I was utterly speechless. I simply turned my face away, refusing to look at him. The smartwatch on my wrist was continuously transmitting a distress signal. Jiang Yinan gave it to me. It's set to send automatically if I move outside a certain range. Fu Hanqing tied me up and is rushing to the private airfield. Jiang Yinan sent a video. In the footage, Suluolua's hands are tied to a long rope, the other end of which is secured to the helicopter's rotor blade. Jiang Yinyan's taunting voice came through the video. Let her go, or I'll have your wife strung up like a kite in front of your child. The scene cut briefly to a child, not yet a year old. My heart skipped a beat. So he never actually broke up with Suluoluo, and now their child is all grown up. When the video ended, she simply turned off her phone as if nothing had happened. Let me go, or he will really do it. Fu Hanqing remained unmoved and replied indifferently, she doesn't matter to me like you do, Shuyu. For you, I'd give up anything. I was stunned by the obsession in his eyes. He's truly lost his mind. The vehicle kept moving forward. Out of nowhere, a motorcycle shot out from the intersection, and a bullet shattered the car window. Instantly, gunfire erupted from all directions. Both Fu Hanqing and Jiang Yunyan were in a murderous frenzy, dead set on killing each other. But after all, this was Jiang Yunyan's turf. Fu Hanqing had no choice but to pull back with me for now. We turned left and right, ducking into a narrow alley. He'd been hit in the abdomen by a stray bullet, yet he still tried to comfort me. Don't be afraid, I will get you home. I watched in silence as a flood of memories played out before my eyes. I let out a sigh. Fu Hanqing, I told you we can't go back to the way things were the moment you fell for Suluoluo. This was the only ending fate had in store for us. I crouched beside him and said with eerie calm, a long time ago, I had a dream. In it, I couldn't accept that we were divorced. I was filled with nothing but resentment and bitterness. So, at your wedding, I slapped Suluoluo, then you ran over my mother and, you personally took our child from me. I've never been able to forget that dream, Fu Hanqing. If I had rushed out to confront you that day when I saw you two going to get your marriage license, do you think that dream would have come true? He was speechless. We both knew these were things he was perfectly capable of doing. When he loves someone, he would move heaven and earth for them, but when he doesn't, he wouldn't even bat an eye if they died right in front of him. It was just a dream. Ayu, I would never hurt you. Everything will be alright once we get home, I promise, okay. I shook my head and gently slipped free of the frayed ropes. I drew the gun I'd picked up in the chaos without a moment's hesitation. I aimed at his thigh and pulled the trigger. A sharp crack rang out. He didn't even glance at the leg I'd injured. Not a single whimper escaping him. The rain began to fall again. Jiang Yunan caught up from a distance and held an umbrella over me. It was as if everything had returned to how it was 10 years ago. Don't go, Shuyu. Please don't go. Don't leave me here alone, Shuyu. Don't. Watching my figure recede into the distance, Fu Hanqing was suddenly seized by panic. He roared, struggling to crawl towards me. But this time, I didn't look back. I didn't pause for a single step. 3 years later, I had just finished my medical volunteer work in country I. As I was leaving the airport, I saw Su Luoluo. She waved to me, holding her child. I was told she's a music teacher now. We shared a smile. I've let go of the past. That's all for today's story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe.